Yeah. So I know Karthik has done a lot of work in that. Avatar mein Vavik Jay, yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
No. So I think Karthik has done a lot of work in that, including making an app and other social work. So this is a very close group I have, sharing that with everybody who wants to contribute, help me in this initiative. We can discuss it offline or maybe after the our session.
Sure. Let's quickly spend 5 minutes after this session. Mama, I heard you say something. Were you trying to say something when Ashok started? Ashok, your audio is bad today.
We are bound to so many
is it better now?
apps.
One second. No, is it better now?
Slightly
is it better?
But
yeah, it's better.
Just one.
Better, yeah.
Me, just give me a minute. I'll go closest to the. Is it better now or is it the best now?
Yeah, it's okay. We'll check it out. It's fine. As long as you can hear us and see the screen, it's good enough.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Go ahead, Mama. I could sense some criticism coming along.
Yes. We have got bound with so many apps. Let's disengage from one or two and then settle on two, which is convenient for everyone.
I agree. I've been thinking of that myself. Okay. So first is unwinding, then cessation. So I will first see what we can reduce. I think we can stop using Teams for messaging, because I think that's probably people are not very used to it. People don't have it installed on the phone and all that. So we can disengage that first, and Trello plus Telegram is what we can stick to. Anyway, more on that maybe towards the end of today's session. We can spend some time on Trello.
Karthik, along with the removal of SANSKARAS, we have disengagement from apps.
No, we can keep those apps going on. We can keep the other apps going on, but let it be for our commune work, togetherness work. Let it be only two.
Selective.
Yes.
Yeah, I think basically a strict protocol. What has to be done where? So that's what I was thinking, so that everybody knows. Because today, when Kama sent it, where should he send that message, which is meant for all of us? So yesterday he did the right thing by sending it in Telegram, but Ashok is not on Telegram. I just realized, which is tragic, because Ashok might have joined yesterday, right? Anyway, Kama, I would like you to share that video, collect that video from Roxy and then Roxanne, and share it with us when you get a chance. It was a very nice presentation. I saw the slides, but I had guests at home, so I could not hear all that you said. And obviously, it was received well. So keen to know more by listening to it on one of my walks.
I would like to make a suggestion. Whoever was there, I think.
I also missed it yesterday in the confusion where the link was in so many apps. And is there a recording available?
Yeah, it will be posted on YouTube or something. I will keep track of that and inform you guys once it's ready.
Yeah, please.
So I think apart from Karthik, I think Ravi was there. So I would love for Ravi to make his comments. I know he sent me his personal thing, but he can say something about the presentation, and he can be very frank. Go ahead, Ravi, if it's possible. Thanks.
No, Ravi is not yet joined.
Ravi's not on. He's going to be late today. So we'll get started with the reading, and then Ravi comes in, we can do the comments from him. Okay. I don't want to try Ashok's reading today, Ashok, for his audio issues. Vipul, you want to read?
Yes.
Sure, thank you.
The seven realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following seven realities. Number one, the only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is self in every finite self. Two, the only real love is the love for this infinity, that is God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, become one with its truth, that is God. Three, the only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. 4. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. 5. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is inner dweller in good people and in so-called bad, in saint and in so-called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. 6. The only real control is the discipline of senses to abstain from indulgences in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. 7. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Jai Baba.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. So we are on physical page 51, which is probably the third page in part 2, dispersion of, the dispersion and exhaustion of sanskaras. So it starts with negation of sanskaras is attained through control. But then he also explains that pure negation is or not effective. True control, a creative readjustment in light of true values, and that's where we'll start our day with understanding these terms of values. Dispersion and exhaustion of samskaras is where we were when we ended. So we discussed the process of sublimation and what it means, which is process of replacing lower values by higher values. So the question Vipul had when we ended and we agreed to defer for today was, what are these higher and what are these lower values? And
Right.
if you recollect, I had also said, Mama pointed out as new and old values, and then Baba's word is also true and false values in earlier chapters as well. So let's have a discussion on this. So anybody, what is lower values? What is higher values? And what does that mean?
So, can we classify lust, greed, and anger as lower values, and the opposite of that as higher values?
Yeah, that's
Hello?
a good. Yeah, we can hear you. That's a good point, right? That's obviously non-exhaustive list, but good starting point, no doubt. But then, why is something higher or why is something lower?
Anything which adds to your sanskaras is lower. Anything which reduces your sanskara is higher. So the ultimate is the zero sum game. In fact, I had that question in, in my mind: is how do we reach the zero sum game? Of course, we require the grace of the perfect master, but that could be a starting point to the thought process of how do we, if we keep our actions and our thoughts, words, and deeds towards reaching the zero sum game, I think that would lead to classifying which are the higher values and which are the lower values. Anybody could add, you can correct me, but this is my thought process.
Jai Baba, I think values is something also contextual. I think one way we can do is if you put a search item called values in Discourses and God Speaks and the other Baba literature, you will come across different aspects of values. So I think what Ashok said is also correct. The basic lust, greed, anger, which are what you call as coarser desires. Baba says try to transcend it to the finer desires. So the finer desires would be convert lust into love, greed into generosity, anger into compassion and tolerance. So Kama, Krodha, Lobh, we know are the three main factors relating to the gross, subtle and mental body. Then we can go to five other variables, which includes infatuation, lust, greed, anger, jealousy. And so those are five aspects which Baba says that you need to eliminate to receive the grace of gift of pure love from the perfect master. Then you also have the seven deadly sins. Now each operating system has the same thing said in different ways, fear and worry, you can add that. That's how I look at it. But then the whole ego, which comprises of all the different lower values, because the ego is basically consisting of both good and bad. That is the interesting aspect. One, you have a material ego, you have a spiritual ego. I have this great knowledge. I'm doing a lot of good things, I'm doing a lot of charity, like going back to the same chapter on selfishness. So selfishness is a kind of a lower value. Then higher value is selflessness, but then you have to go beyond both, which is selfness. So I think there are different degrees of values depending on which plane you are. And I think there is a lot of, I think, as I said, if you put the search term, you'll be able to get some interesting insights on that. I'm not able to recollect everything, but that is one suggestion. Jai Baba.
That's a very good suggestion, Kama. In fact, if there are no volunteers, I'll take that project where we actually try to understand what Baba has done with this word values, right? In fact, I was also tempted to put a card on Trello for some words to watch out, right? So already we have encountered some words like that. One being adjustment, right? Adjustment is something, adjustment is
Yes.
something that will keep appearing right through discourses. Values is another. So there are some words that Baba uses
Words like apparent,
or
words like
apparent,
apparent,
yes,
words like
yeah,
paradox. Even word like Maya, Baba said that you can't understand Maya until you self-realize. So Maya will still be an intellectual concept, in the journey, whether you call it principle of ignorance, shadow of reality, creator of illusion, so on and so forth. So these are the words which we need to be cognizant about. Even the word purging of desires, is a very powerful word, purging and renunciation, of desires, because the whole concept of self-realization is based on ROD, renunciation of desires. So, yeah, I think it would be a good idea to keep a list of these important words which will relate to the seven realities and other literature. Yeah, Bob.
And I think the project on the values. But Vipul, is this clarifying what you are looking for? And Mama, you're new and old. Where does that fit
Ha,
in?
okay.
Yes.
What I meant by new and old is when we take all the literature from religious texts and other things, so they become more of ritualistic in the connotation of the world we are living today. So Baba has expanded and given scope for scientific inquiry also into spiritual world, and not just accept a priest's commands. So that is the new thing. So it opens up a horizon wherein we can say imbibe all our and use all our new scientific knowledge in understanding the spiritual aspirations and then spiritual way to go ahead. So that I think was the new one, and that attracted me more towards Baba than anything else. So that is one development which is giving valuation to certain things which were absent earlier. Jai Baba.
Awesome. Interesting.
Jai Baba. May I request one more thing? Maybe
Sure.
it is addressed to Kama. Kama has a lot of acronyms. If on Trello, if on Trello we can start putting gradually.
A board, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, about the acronyms. Like just now he said ROD.
ROD.
Yeah, I mean, it struck me. Okay.
We have
Eh,
been asking Kama for this for a long time now. So we want a sort
So
of
we'll
a
put list.
list. And then we can
No, but
arrange it
then
alphabetically or any other methodology.
correct, agreed. In fact, initially it used to be a put off. If you look at it 1 year back, the moment I heard the acronym, I used to say, "Oh God," okay. But off late, I've actually been able to appreciate more. And Kama, I was telling you yesterday, right? So yesterday's big takeaway for me was the MOW, most original win, right? So that stuck with me now. So like that, I think a worthwhile effort. One is words in discourses and God speaks, and the second is Karma's acronyms. So we'll create two cards on Trello and add to that list, and we'll try to prod Karma to finish it, because I'm sure if he just sits with both discourses and God speaks, he'll finish it in an hour. He has it all over as notes on the physical book, right, Kaba?
Karthik, it is in a hard disk, is in memory. He just
Exactly.
Right,
Not
right,
even the
right.
book.
It will happen. It will happen.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, jokes apart, let's get back to continue to read. Then is that fine?
Karthik, I have a suggestion if it's okay. This was the
Sure.
beginning of the chapter. Is it okay if we do a small reread? I can do it if you want, but is it a waste of time? I was just wondering. Because it's just 1-2
Uh,
pages.
yeah, we can do it, but then we can do it as a exception this time. But in future, I think let's stick to continuing from where we left off, because that's where we are recording and we have the video as well, right? So there's a backup. Anyway, I will take your input and read from part 2, beginning of the chapter now. Okay? Jai
Thank you.
Baba.
Thank you, Jay Baba.
Part 2, dispersion and exhaustion of sanskaras. Subtitle, negation of sanskaras attained through control. At the end of part 1, the methods of removing sanskaras are explained that depend chiefly on the principle of negating the positive sanskaras, which also veil the truth from consciousness and prevent self-illumination for which the whole creation came into being. All these methods of negating the positive sanskaras are ultimately based upon the control of the body and mind. Control of the habitual tendencies of the mind is much more difficult than control of physical actions. The fleeting and evasive thoughts and desires of the mind can be curbed only with great patience and persistent practice. But the restraint of mental processes and reactions is necessary to check the formation of new sanskaras and to wear out or unwind the old sanskaras as of which they are expressions. Though control might be difficult at the beginning, through sincere effort it gradually becomes natural and easy to achieve. Control is deliberate and involves effort as long as the mind is trying to decondition itself through the removal of sanskaras. But after the mind is released from the sanskaras, control becomes spontaneous because the mind is then functioning in freedom and understanding. Such control is born of strength of character and health of mind, and it invariably brings with it freedom from fear and immense peace and calmness. The mind, which appears feeble when it is wanton and uncontrolled in its functioning, becomes a source of great strength when it is controlled. Control is indispensable for the conservation of mental energy and the economical use of thought force for creative purposes. True control, a creative readjustment in the light of true values. However, if control is purely mechanical and aimless, it defeats its own purpose, which is to make possible the free and unconditioning functioning of the mind. Control that has true spiritual value does not consist in the mechanical repression of thoughts and desires, but is the natural restraint exercised by perception of positive values discovered during the process of experience. True control is therefore not merely negative. When some positive values come within the focus of consciousness, their claims for being expressed in life generate mental responses that ultimately remove all the tendencies obstructing a free and full expression of those values. Thus, the tendencies for lust, greed, and anger are removed through an appreciative recognition of the value of a life of purity, generosity, and kindness. The mind, becoming accustomed to certain habits of thought and response, does not find it easy to adjust itself to these new claims of its own perceptions, owing to the inertia caused by the impressions of previous modes of thought and conduct. This process of readjustment in the light of true values takes the form of what we call controlling the mind. This control is not a mechanical or forcible twisting of the mind. It is an effort of the mind to overcome its own inertia. It is fundamentally creative and not negative in its purpose. For it is an attempt of the mind to arrive at self-adjustment in order to release the expression of the true values of life. Dispersion and exhaustion of sanskaras. Creative control becomes possible because the source of light is within everyone. And though self-illumination is prevented by the veil of sanskaras, it is not all darkness, even within the boundaries of ordinary human consciousness. The ray of light consists of a sense for true values and guides man onward with varying degrees of clarity according to the thickness of the veil of sanskaras. The process of the negation of sanskaras is at the same time the process of understanding true values. Spiritual progress is thus characterized by the dual aspect of renouncing the false values of sanskaras in favor of the true values of understanding. The process of replacing lower values by higher values is the process of sublimation, which consists in diverting the mental energy locked up in the old sanskaras towards creative and spiritual ends. When this energy locked up in the sanskaras is thus diverted, they get dispersed and exhausted. Process of sublimation sustained by unfailing interest. The method of sublimation is the most natural and effective method of breaking through the grooves of old sanskaras and has the special advantage of having an unfailing interest for the aspirant at all stages. The method of mere negation without any substitution is sometimes likely to be boring and may seem to lead to vacuity. But the method of sublimation consists in replacing lower values with higher ones and is therefore full of absorbing interest at every stage, bringing an ever-increasing sense of fulfillment. Mental energy can be sublimated into spiritual channels through meditation, selfless service for humanity, and devotion. Right? This is where we stopped yesterday, so we'll continue now.
Can we just the last sentence? Mental energy can be sublimated into spiritual channels through meditation, selfless service for humanity, and devotion. I understand part 2 and part 3 fairly well. I did not understand meditation. What is meant by meditation here?
Vipulji, there is a separate chapter on meditation. There are various types of meditation. So I think it will become clearer if you browse through that section.
Okay.
It is one, and then I think the next subtitle itself is about meditation and its purpose and nature. But broadly, I think it was interesting when Kama was summarizing yesterday, right? So if you look at it, these can be looked at like the bhakti, karma, and jnana yoga as well, right? So meditation is concentration on something, which is knowledge, and selfless service, karma, and I mean karma yoga. I'm talking the Vedantic karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, and devotion is bhakti yoga. So we'll find out more as we unravel this in the chapter, I guess. So we'll continue and find out. Next subtitle is Meditation, Its Nature and Purpose. Meditation is deep and constant concentration upon an ideal object. In such concentration upon an ideal object, the person is conscious only of the object of meditation, completely forgetting the mind as well as the body. Thus, no new sanskaras are formed and old ones are dispersed and exhausted through the mental activity of dwelling on the object of concentration. Finally, when the sanskaras completely disappear, the soul as individualized is dissolved in the intensity of concentration and is merged in the ideal object. Any comments on meditation before we continue?
No.
Okay. Let's go to the forms of meditation. There are many forms of meditation according to the aptitude of different persons. The imaginative genius of persons who have to labor hard is often dried up due to overwork. For such persons, the form of meditation most suitable consists in disconnecting oneself from one's thoughts and then looking upon these thoughts and the body objectively. After the aspirant is successful in regarding his thoughts and his body with complete objectivity, he tries to identify himself with the cosmic being through constructive suggestions such as, I am the infinite, I am in everything, I am in all. Those who have vivid and lively imaginations can try intensive concentration on some point, but fixing the mind on some point should be avoided by those who have no liking for it. Ordinarily, the energy of the mind is scattered through its diverse thoughts. Meditation on a point is very salutary for the mind to gather itself and settle down, but it is a mechanical process and therefore lacks creative and blissful experiences. However, in the initial stages, this form of meditation might be used as a preparation for other more successful forms of meditation. Yeah, any comments? Continue.
This second form of meditation, initially what is stated, looks like Vipassana Kriya, if I am not mistaken. Kama,
Yeah,
any
I
comments
don't
on
know.
that?
Kama?
Kama is the expert.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Vipassana.
I just stepped out. What was your question? Sorry.
The first part of the forms of meditation, this paragraph, seems to be the process of Vipassana. Am I correct in understanding like that?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think about thoughts, whenever you talk about thoughts, it would be about Vipassana. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Just one more question. There's a word objectively in the previous paragraph, I think, or the previous page. So, what does that mean actually? Objectively, look at your body objectively.
It's a good question because we have come across this subjective objective. I think this would be another kind of homework where putting a search term for values. You want to put a search term for subjective and objective because it is coming in different chapters. So the way to again all these words have to be looked at it from a contextual point of view. So when you're looking at the subject, who is the subject? The subject is the human being, which is the drop soul, which is us. What is the objective or what is the object? Is God. So technically, there is nothing like subject and object. It is only because of duality we have this separation of subject and object. When you go to sleep, there is no duality, there is no subject and object. And we also know that from there are, when you see the dance, the dancer and the dance become one, the observer, the observation, and the observed. So there is always this tri I don't know what the word is, tri state, you can call it. So you as a subject is observing the objective environment. Okay, the environment doesn't change because it is based on universal laws of nature, but you as a subject are subjective in the way you perceive things, and that is based on one's degree of consciousness or sanskaras. So if you take the same object, different people, it's like I think the best analogy is the seven blind men. When they feel the elephant, right? Of course, they are not seeing it, but they are feeling the elephant. So that is a very subjective way of looking at something. The seven blind men when they feel the elephant. So you have to. So subjective means something which is more related to your inner sanskaras, the inner being, and objective is more to do with the external environment. I think this is my understanding. Jayabal.
Ashok, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes.
See, in one of the chapters we read in Sanskaras, what happens to a human being is We have subjective sanskaras which we are carrying from past lives. But the environment also determines our action of thoughts, words, and deeds, good or bad. So, what we are doing is you are facing the environment and reacting or responding to the environment based on your sanskaric tendencies. So, this is where discrimination comes. See, animals are automatically programmed to react in a particular way. That is why they keep winding sanskaras. But human beings have the option of either spending sanskaras or unwinding sanskaras. That is where I think, guidance of a perfect master or avatar helps, because this is what happens to every human soul. Is first we go through trial and error, we go through a lot of suffering, and then we come to this question, what's going on? And then you start asking the right questions, and then you read a guide to help you discriminate. So this is where, like a book like Discourses or God Speaks helps us to, discriminate our environment and figure out what is the best way to respond, not react. Jai Baba.
Whence and whither?
Yes.
We start with that.
Ultimate
Journey. Yeah, go ahead.
Ultimately, he came to that final ending: respond and not react. That
React.
has to be
Powerful.
that has to
He
be
sneaked it in.
kept it in mind always.
Yeah. Okay, so subtitle next subtitle is meditation on personal and impersonal aspects of God. So we'll start with that. The more successful and deeper forms of meditation are preceded by deliberate and constructive thinking about God, the beloved. Meditation on God is spiritually most fruitful. God can become the object of meditation either in his impersonal aspect or in his personal aspect. Meditation on the impersonal aspect of God is suitable only for those who have a special aptitude for it. It consists of focusing all thoughts on the abstract and unmanifest existence of God. On the other hand, meditation on the personal aspect of God consists in centering all thoughts upon the form and attributes of God. So, Nirakar and Sakar. After intensive meditation, the mind might want to settle down not on the object of meditation, but on the steadiness of the expansive peace experienced during meditation. Such moments are the natural result of the fatigue of the faculty of imagination, and they should be effortlessly encouraged. Meditation should be meditation should be spontaneous and not forced. In the moments of the surging up of divine impulses, imagination should be let loose and allowed to soar. The flight of imagination should be controlled only by the set purpose of becoming one with the infinite. It should not be influenced by the currents of the diverse feelings of lust, greed, or anger. So I don't know how the word fatigue fits in here. If you read this, such moments are the natural result of the fatigue of the faculty of imagination, and they should be effortlessly encouraged. What he's saying is, after intensive meditation, the mind might want to settle down not on the object of meditation, but on the steadiness of the expansive peace experienced during meditation. So he's reflecting to this, which is positive. Such moments are the natural result of the fatigue of the faculty of imagination, and they should be effortlessly encouraged. So that's where I was a bit unclear, but we'll let it pass.
No, Karthik, if I may just add, it basically
Sure.
means your mind gets into various directions, and there are various thoughts which are coming in. And when you do meditation, I feel that the thoughts coming are less, so we sort of feel fatigued, or let's say the speed of the activity of the thoughts coming in and going out might reduce, and will that be connoting the fatigue of the mind, and then we are concentrating only
Yeah,
on.
that's a good point. So fatigue of imagination leads to, I expansive peace experienced during meditation. Point taken. Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you. So, obstacles in meditation. Next subtitle. Success in concentration comes only gradually, and the novice is likely to be disheartened because he does not get satisfactory results in the beginning. Often, the disappointment that he experiences is in itself a serious obstruction to beginning the meditation of the day and to persist in it. Other obstacles like idleness and ill health also may be difficult to overcome, but they can be gotten over by having fixed and regular hours for meditation and steady practice. During early morning or at sunset, the quiet condition of nature is particularly helpful for meditation, but it may also be undertaken at any other suitable time. Importance of solitude for meditation. Solitude is one of the essential conditions for attaining success in meditation. In the world of thought, there is a constant intermingling of thought forms and colors. Some mighty ideas tend to strengthen the mind by facilitating integration, whereas some frivolous thoughts are dissipating. The mind is either attracted or repelled by these diverse thoughts in the mental environment. It is advisable to avoid the influence of these variegated thoughts in order to get established in one's own ideal thoughts. For this purpose, solitude has immense possibilities. Solitude means economy of mental energy and increased power of concentration. Having nothing extraneous to attract or repel the mind, you are drawn inward and learn the art of opening yourself to the higher currents which have the potency of giving you strength, bliss, and peaceful expansiveness. With that, meditation, the first of the 3 points is over. So we go to the second point.
I just wanted to highlight that in terms of moving from lower to higher currents, they're using the word currents. So bliss and peaceful expansiveness, strength, bliss, and peaceful expansiveness are the attributes of the higher currents. So can we make it, or can we correlate this to higher values? Because this is the process of reaching the higher values: strength, bliss, and peaceful expansiveness.
Yeah. In fact, your audio improved significantly. So whatever you did to fix it is what you should do all the time.
Thank you, boss. I came on my MacBook.
Okay, good. Yeah. So selfless service is the next section. While meditation on the personal and impersonal aspects, just before we go there, again, this is just 3 paragraphs on meditation, but like Ashok pointed out, there are separate chapters on meditation, which we will take up in detail, and we'll probably even do a group meditation when we do that, right? So we'll continue here on selfless service. While meditation on the personal and impersonal aspects of God requires withdrawal of consciousness into the sanctuary of one's own heart, concentration on the universal aspect of God is best achieved through selfless service for humanity. Request all mics to be muted, please. When a person is completely absorbed in the service of humanity, he is completely oblivious of his own body or mind or their functions as in meditation. And therefore, new sanskaras are not formed. Further, the old sanskaras that bind the mind are shattered and dispersed. Since the individual is now centering his attention and interest not upon his own good, but upon the good of others, the nucleus of the ego is deprived of its nourishing energy. Selfless service is therefore one of the best methods of diverting and sublimating the energy locked up in the binding sanskaras. So it brings one back to the example Ravi brought up in his questions of IV dose and the vehicle, right? And the samskaras from it, and then the discussion that we had around what is action that is non-binding, and this is a good explanation for it. Implications of selfless service. Selfless service is accomplished when there is not the slightest thought of reward or result, and when there is complete disregard of one's own comfort or convenience or the possibility of being misunderstood. When you're wholly occupied with the welfare of others, you can hardly think of yourself. You are not concerned with your comfort and convenience or your health and happiness. On the contrary, you're willing to sacrifice everything for their well-being. Their comfort is your convenience. Their health is your delight, and their happiness is your joy. You find your life in losing it in theirs. You live in their hearts, and your heart becomes their shelter. When there is true union of hearts, you completely identify yourself with the other person. Your act of help or word of comfort supplies to others whatever might be lacking in them. And through their thoughts of gratitude and goodwill, you actually receive more than you give. Freedom and fulfillment through service. Thus, through living for others, your own life finds its amplification and expansion. The person who leads a life of selfless service is therefore hardly conscious of serving. He does not make those whom he serves feels that they are in any way under obligation to him. On the contrary, he himself feels obliged for being given a chance of making them happy. Neither for show nor for name and fame does he serve them. Selfless service is completely achieved only when an individual derives the same happiness in serving others as in being served himself. The ideal of selfless service frees him from the sanskaras of craving for power and possession, of self-pity and jealousy, of evil deeds actuated through selfishness. Love. Next subsection, love. Selfless service and meditation are both spontaneous when they are inspired by love. Love is therefore rightly regarded as being the most important avenue leading to the realization of the highest. In love, the soul is completely absorbed in the beloved and is therefore detached from the actions of the body or mind. This puts an end to the formation of new sanskaras and also results in the undoing of old sanskaras by giving to life an entirely new direction. Nowhere does self-forgetfulness come so naturally and completely as in the intensity of love. Hence, it has been given the foremost place among the methods that secure release of consciousness from the bondage of sanskaras. Purifying efficacy of love. Love comprehends in itself the different advantages belonging to other paths leading to emancipation and is in itself the most distinguished and effective path. It is at once characterized by self-sacrifice and happiness. Its uniqueness lies in the fact that it is accompanied by an exclusive and wholehearted offering to the beloved without admitting the claims of any other object. Thus, there is no room for the diversion of mental energy and concentration is complete. In love, the physical, vital, and mental energies of man are all gathered up and made available for the cause of the beloved, with the result that this love becomes a dynamic power. The tension of true love is so great that any foreign feeling that might intervene is at once thrown out. The expulsive and purifying efficacy of love is unparalleled. I think these are two very good paragraphs on love. Love is present throughout creation. There is nothing unnatural or.
Can I have a say?
Sure.
So the words used at the last sentence, tension of true love. So when we use the term tension, we always take it in a negative sense. As we read earlier, the fatigue word also.
Yeah.
And then uh, the expulsive and purifying efficacy of love is unparalleled. Expulsive is also a term which we always use for something to discard or things like that. So these are Baba's way of using English, or they say the English used here is in way we need to understand these things to clearly picturize what Baba is trying to tell us. The force behind the word is more important than the contextual bound meaning that we have created in our minds regarding these words. We have to expel out, I think.
Well said.
And yes, and the other aspect which I got through these two paragraphs is that all three aspects, that is meditation and
Yes.
also self-service, is included in love. So one pointedness is related to meditation and service to the core of the beloved, that is selfless service. So taken together is love. Jai Baba.
Yeah. So I think though he made it a list of three, this line gives it away, which is it's not a list. Selfless service and meditation are both spontaneous when they are inspired by love. So they're all linked, and at the pinnacle is the love, right? Love is therefore regarded as being the most important avenue leading to the realization of the highest, right? And then we will continue to understand what is love being present throughout
Can
creation.
we say can we say that selfless service and meditation are just tools where to achieve pure love? I mean, they're just tools. Because ultimately, the goal is love or the pure love for the beloved. But I just want to have a question that selfless service done for humanity in your daily lives, is that also part of this, or is it lower or higher? How do you classify? Because
Firstly, I'll correct what you said. In the context of what we are reading, it's not that we are getting to love. He's saying the other way around. He's saying that first you need the seed of love for you to be doing selfless service and meditation correctly. At least that's what this sentence says, right? Selfless service and meditation are both spontaneous when they are inspired by love.
Okay, yes.
Right? So if you do it from the root of love, it is most spontaneous and most effective from a spiritual standpoint. That is, if you have love at the root and then do selfless service, if you have love at the root and then do meditation, then you're more successful. That's what I'm taking away from this. But yeah, any other thoughts? Anybody else?
I think that we have
examples
to
of selfless service.
Yeah, Vipul, you have to repeat. I think both of you spoke at the same time, Kama and you. So Vipul first and then Kama.
Any couple of examples of selfless service, please?
I am struggling with it. I after reading the definition of selfless service, I decided I have not done selfless service. So, anybody has any good examples of selfless service? Good.
Yeah, Baba, I think that selfless service, the most, I think, obvious examples is, in one of the chapters where I think it's in the chapter on task for spiritual workers or work for the spiritual freedom of humanity. I think those two chapters summarize what is the perfect, it's a kind of a template for how a human being can exist in today's society. Baba said that you can provide food to the hungry, you can provide shelter to the homeless, you can provide clothing to the naked. Okay, roti kapda makan. Now we know that in India, temples and rich, high net worth individuals do this kind of charity. Now the important thing is the attitude. How do you give your, a form of selfless service, whether you give food or clothing or housing? Now the important thing is what is your attitude behind, because you're going to create sanskaras. Even if you are going with the fact that, oh, I'm doing this because it makes me feel good, I'm going to get some brownie points, you are basically creating sanskaras, good sanskaras. And that is also being caught up in duality. So the meaning of selfless service means that you're doing it without expectation, you're doing it with spontaneity, you're doing it with vivek and vairagya, discrimination and dispassion, with detachment, and the aspect of love, we have to understand that love is a medium. Whether you do kriya yoga, whether you do jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, or even in our material life, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga also applies to our material life. It is not just the spiritual life. It is, if you are a sportsman, you are like, whether you are Ronaldo or Messi or any cricket player, all these people have succeeded because of love, the passion, the talent is there, but the love and passion is so important for every endeavor in life, whether you do something in your material life or whether you do something in your spiritual life. Love, yesterday's talk, I mentioned this. Just like oxygen is important for the material body, love is important in our spiritual journey. Whether you are agnostic, atheist, doesn't matter. So the concept of love also has to be understood based on what you're doing. So selfless service definitely is simply intelligent action where you're unwinding sanskaras, you don't have any expectations, you're doing it with very spontaneously through your heart. I think that is what is selfless. And I think that is mentioned in the chapter of selfishness. If you read that selfishness chapter, it's clearly given there. And I think that people have to go through selfishness, then transform to selflessness, and then you have to transcend to selfness. And there again, the
Selfless for all.
grace of the, yeah, you have to have the grace of the perfect master. When it will happen, you won't know. So again, the values that we are talking about, from lower values to higher values, you're basically, you can say lower values is like, oh, you know what, I'm doing this charity, I'm feeling good, like, my name should be on this institution. That is a lower value. A higher value is you don't care, like, you're just doing it from the heart out of love. And that kind of love, pure love, is a gift. So there are so many different degrees of love, and that is like a kaleidoscope. So the way I look at love is, you have human love, which is very kaleidoscopic nature, depending on who you're relating to. And then you have what you call as pure love, which starts from the first plane, and that is the gift of the perfect master. After we finish with our gross sanskaras, what we have read, the infinite longing to be united with God, that is in the subtle body. But then you go to surrender in the mental body, because there also there is no expectation. That becomes selfless. You don't care about God realization, because there is nothing like God realization. The fact of the matter is, the sanskaras is a headache that prevents us from awakening to our own godliness or godhood. It's not that something objective is out there, that there is an object called God. We are the subject and we are the walking Buddhas, and we are trying to awaken that Buddhahood in us. So this whole journey is about self-realization. God realization is just terminology. That is why that aspect of personal form of God and impersonal form of God was mentioned, because we know that infinite consciousness, the eternal avataric infinite consciousness state 2B, is nirguna nirakar, formless, which descended into the first drop soul, who became the avatar. So the avatar is the personal form of God. He was designated as that. So Baba has said that human beings need to go through the personal form of God and then transcend to the formless, and it's not for everybody. Jai Baba.
At least let's hope it's for everybody on this call. Thank you for that summary. And let me continue with love. Love is present throughout creation. There is nothing unnatural or artificial about love. It exists from the very beginning of evolution. At the inorganic stage, it is crudely expressed in the form of cohesion or attraction. It is the natural affinity that keeps things together and draws them to each other. The gravitational pull exercised by the heavenly bodies upon each other is an expression of this type of love. At the organic stage, love becomes self-illumined and self-appreciative and plays an important part from the lowest forms like the amoeba to the most evolved form of human beings. When love is self-illumined, its value is intensified by its conscious sacrifice. I need help in understanding the word. What is self-illumined? So I get everything else still there. And then I assume organic stage means animal forms, maybe in the context of what he's saying, because he starts with amoeba. But what is love becoming self-illumined? Anybody?
So it is
There's
a
another word
starting
for
up of self-awareness, I think.
self-appreciative also.
Yes. So in the inorganic
Yes, Jai
thing.
Baba.
Yes,
Hi,
go ahead.
where are you, Sherry? Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I was unwell. I couldn't join. I'm so sorry. I'm still a bit, but yeah, much better.
How are you now?
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm much better, much better. Thank you. Okay, I just read day before yesterday about illumination and God realization. So I remember self-illumination is getting rid of our lower desire and being self-aware. So Mamaji is right. Yes, that is being illumined. And God realization, of course, is, getting to know God within us, that we are God, and that is God realization. But illumined is basically getting rid of our own lower self.
Correct. But I think in this stage, in this context, I'm not sure if it's that meaning that is referred to, and that's the struggle. Mama,
No,
go on. You're saying something.
No, you are, if you contextually see here, in the inorganic field, it is only thing which can represent this love aspect is that gravitational
Is gravitation.
pull. Okay. When it comes to the organic world, that self-awareness, that actually possessiveness or the ego and all that, that is an expression of love itself. Wrong way, but that is the initiation. So that is what is referred to here. It is not love for the others. Yes.
Yes,
That is
agreed.
how I look at
So
it.
shall we take it? I agree with you. So should we take it as that's the first recognition of the individuation of the soul?
Yes,
And
it looks like that.
self-identification. So self-illumined is basically self-identification with the small s.
Yes, possibly.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Okay, agreed.
Yeah, Jai Baba, actually, what you're saying is correct, because the love is already latent right from the earliest stage of the Big Bang. In the inorganic stage, it is manifesting as the different forces, what you call as gravitational force, electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force. And then when it goes from inorganic to organic, which is starting from the plant kingdom to the animal kingdom, love is manifesting in terms of, when we see the animals with their babies, the kittens and the puppies, you see there is a lot of love. Creatures try to protect their tribe and whatever, so on. So that love is manifested in that sense, but they are unconscious of it. So I think that is what probably I looked at it in terms of self-illumination, that it is unconscious, but it is a form of love that we see even between the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. Jai Baba.
Yeah, thank you. Love expressed through conscious sacrifice. The sacrifice of love is so complete and ungrudging that it has all to give and nothing to expect. The more it gives, the more it wants to give, and the less it is aware of having given. The stream of true love is ever increasing and never failing. Its simple expression is its simple giving over. The complexities of the beloved are a concern of its best attention and care. Endlessly and remorselessly, it seeks to please the beloved in 1,000 ways. It does not hesitate to welcome suffering in order to satisfy but one wish of the beloved or to relieve the beloved of the slightest pain of neglect or indifference. The lover would gladly pine and perish for the sake of the beloved. Careworn and tormented, love waits not to attend to the very body that houses and nourishes it. It brooks no compromise, and the beloved is the concern of the lover's lifetime. The tabernacle of love bursts under unmanageable restlessness and gives birth to streams of love and supreme sweetness until the lover breaks through his limitation and loses himself in the being of the beloved. When love is deep and intense, when love is deep and intense, it is called bhakti or devotion. In its initial stages, devotion is expressed through symbol worship, supplication before the deities, reverence and allegiance to the revealed scriptures, or the pursuit of the highest through abstract thinking. In its more advanced stages, devotion expresses itself as interest in human welfare and the service of humanity, love and reverence for saints, and allegiance and obedience to a spiritual master. These stages have their relative values and relative results. Love for a living perfect master is a unique stage of devotion, for it eventually gets transformed into para bhakti or divine love. So here, I think let's note this carefully. When love is deep and intense, it is called bhakti or devotion. And then he says the initial stages are symbol worship, supplication before the deities, reverence and allegiance to the revealed scriptures, or the pursuit of the highest through abstract thinking. So even this is a form of devotion or love. Then, in its more advanced stages, devotion expresses itself as interest in human welfare and the service of humanity, love and reverence for saints, and allegiance and obedience to a spiritual master. And then he breaks my heart by saying that love for a living perfect master is a unique stage of devotion, because I don't have a living perfect master, but we have the 100 years. Okay, so we'll go to para bhakti.
So
Para bhakti.
I just want to add.
Oh, Karthik, I would like to tell that Baba is living always, was living,
100 years.
is living, will be living.
Will be living.
You should be thinking like that.
Correct.
Mamaji, a fair point. Maybe he's not. I just want to add that this para bhakti, the analogy of or the devotion of Mirabai can be equate to that, because one example of para bhakti where she forgot everything else but had only intense longing to be with the with God.
Yes. I am very much forced to remember Sri Ramakrishna's discourses regarding this, because he has classified these stages of relatedness of your small self with the big self or the beloved in 8 or 9 different stages. So those stages, as you climb, the ultimate is the parabhakti. So those stages are being explained here. We are supposed to cross through all that. So it is not a sort of a long jump. It is going to be a trot and then say gallop and then reaching the goal. So I feel love starts and then creeps and then moves very fast and then reaches the goal. Jai Baba.
So, Mamaji, something similar to moving through the planes, the various planes from
Yes,
plane
yes.
plane
That
7.
is what I am trying to understand, because there they do not talk of any planes, but they talk in a different, say, grammar, different composition, but it is, essence is the same. So I am trying to say equate. So when the particular thing is referred to, either this is in the gross plane or this is in the subtle plane or this is in the mental plane, we need to pitch them together. Then unification comes. So you don't get a sort of a diverse ideology from different sources, but you can unify them and then understand for your benefit. That is how I play around this, because I have read so much in different ways. Now I am trying to unify. Baba is giving me the scope to say assimilate everything together in a unified way for my journey in spiritualism. Jai Baba.
But remember, there is no ism finally.
Yes.
Anyway, that's nice. Nice to hear about that comparative study that you're trying to put together for your personal benefit. Very nice. We'll
I
finish the
just remember.
paragraph.
I just remembered.
Oh, welcome, Ravi.
Jai Baba to everyone.
Jai Baba.
Baba Kalchuri was young, and he happened to visit in Nagapur. Whose tomb was there? One of the perfect master's tomb is there. Forgot
Tajuddin.
it. Tajuddin Baba.
Tajuddin.
Tajuddin Baba. And then he gets very inspired about spirituality, and his whole life is changed. And then he learns about Meher Baba, and Baba, visits Nagapur. He takes a darshan, and he gets very longing to be with Meher Baba. He gets a chance and asks Meher Baba, and Meher Baba says, "Come to Eluru in Andhra Pradesh on so and so date, then meet me. Before that, you have to finish." He was doing masters in public administration and political science. And he said, okay. And Baba left. And then he could not eat anything. He could not sleep. He was very restless for a long time. For a long time, he did not sleep. That's what he was saying. And I thought, when I was reading the Parabhakti, I kind of remembered his narration with us. And he was very intense. And then he comes to Eluru. Baba was going through Andhra tour. And then Baba says, okay, stay with me. I kind of remembered Baba Kalchuri, Parabhakti state. Jai Baba.
Great. Great. Thank you. Parabhakti. So, Parabhakti is not merely intensified bhakti, it begins where bhakti ends. At the stage of Parabhakti, devotion is not only single minded but is accompanied by extreme restlessness of the heart and a ceaseless longing to unite with the beloved. This is followed by lack of interest in one's own body and its care, isolation from one's own surroundings, and utter disregard for the appearances of criticism. while the divine impulses of attraction to the beloved become more frequent than ever. This highest phase of love is most fruitful because it has as its object the one who is love incarnate and who can, as the supreme beloved, respond to the lower lover most completely. The purity, sweetness, and efficacy of the love that the lover receives from the master contributes to the insuperable spiritual value of this highest phase of love. So that is Parabhakti. So we have 15 minutes, so we can wrap up a little early today. We'll just summarize and discuss this chapter before closure. Any points of any questions from anybody? So meditation, selfless service, and love. Have we figured out how they are related? At the end, let's not forget this is in the process of sanskaras. So anyway, let me just go through the subtitles before we wrap. So we started with negation of sanskaras through control, and then the true control of creative readjustment in the light of true values. Again, both the keywords are used together, the adjustment and values, right? And then dispersion and exhaustion of sanskaras. We talked about the sublimation process, which is how you move from the lower to the higher. Process of sublimation is sustained by unfailing interest, and then the three ways of sublimating mental energy: meditation, selfless service, and humanity and devotion. And then meditation, its purpose, nature and purpose. We looked at the two types of meditation. And then we also saw meditation in another way, which is another way of classification of meditation being between personal and impersonal. Then the obstacles in meditation, I could relate to that. Importance of solitude for meditation. And then he talks about selfless service, but I agree with Kama, the coverage is much better in another chapter. I think we have finished that. Selfishness. In that, I'm not sure if that's where he goes on to convey selfless service as well. Implications of selfless service. And then freedom and fulfillment through service, right? So then he gets to love. And then the key statement that we noticed was selfless service and meditation are both spontaneous when they are inspired by love. So if love is what starts both all the processes, then it's most effective. Then the purifying efficacy of love, and some great lines there. Love is present throughout creation. So he starts with the concept of cohesion or attraction, then the gravitational pull, and then we discussed how the first identification and self-appreciation is the organic stage of love. And then it goes on expanding in scope where it moves away from the personal small self. Love expressed through conscious sacrifice and different stages of devotion. A good contrast brought about by Mama on how similar things exist in other paths. And then you have Parabhakti, which is devotion, intensified devotion to the divine beloved, right? So that's this chapter. So any questions and comments before we wrap up for the day?
Karthik, I think the last line can be highlighted. It's very significant.
Yes, agreed.
The purity, sweetness, and efficacy of the love that the lover receives from the master contributes to the insuperable spiritual value of this highest phase of love.
Agreed. So, anything else, or we can close for the day? I will stop recording. We can hang out for some more time, given we have a few minutes. One of the things that I will work on is the